There's a certain unexplainable mystique that surrounds the story of Jochen Rindt, a driver with talent, speed, determination, and bravery who was taken far too soon, all in the pursuit of becoming world champion, a milestone he would reach but never realize it. You may not know that Austria's first F1 champ was German-born. Rindt's parents were killed in a World War II bombing raid in Hamburg, and at 15 months old, he was raised by his grandparents in Graz. Young Jochen looked up to German driver Wolfgang von Trips, who was on the cusp of a championship when he was killed at Monza, along with 15 spectators in the 1961 Italian Grand Prix. The death of his hero didn't stop Rindt from pursuing a racing career, and it all happened quickly. While he was able to use the inheritance from his wealthy family's spice business, he did have more than enough pace. Rindt first gained international fame by beating Graham Hill in only his second F2 start. With just a little over a year of single-seater experience, Rindt made his Formula One debut in the 1964 Austrian GP in a one-off for Rob Walker. The following year, the Austrian teamed with Maston Gregory to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans in a Ferrari. As for open-wheel racing, 1965 marked his first full F1 season and 3 hit-or-miss seasons with Cooper. Rindt was able to shine through on occasions with podiums for a team that was on the decline before moving to the defending champs Brabham for 1968. Aside from 2 poles and 2 podiums, the season was riddled with reliability woes. Fresh off another title, Lotus was looking to replace the late Jim Clark for the 1969 season. Rindt was certainly tempted by the money and the potential success. Rindt debated the move with friend and manager Bernie Ecclestone, where they concluded that Lotus provided the best opportunity to win in F1, but Brabham would likely be his best chance to race and stay alive. Jochen signed on the dotted line with Lotus for 1969, but that pre-season conversation proved to be ominous when the rear wing on the Austrian's car failed while leading the Spanish GP. Rindt crashed out spectacularly, hitting teammate Hill's car, whose aerofoil also failed a few laps before. Despite injuries to his face and legs, the Austrian was lucky to escape the mangled Lotus alive. Before the season was over, Rindt became an F1 winner, taking his triumph at Watkins Glen. Rindt was promoted to the team's number 1 after Hill had a horrific crash at the same US Grand Prix that Rindt won. In 1970, Rindt took one of his most famous victories that was a combination of ragged-edge skill and some luck. Still driving the Lotus 49C, Jochen moved up in the running order of the Monaco Grand Prix after others hit problems until only the leader Jack Brabham remained ahead. However, his former boss was hobbled by a throttle problem, so Rindt, smelling blood, went on the attack. The Austrian was flinging his car through the streets of Monte Carlo and was over 2 seconds quicker than his own qualifying pace. The pressure paid off as Brabham made a mistake and put his car in the barrier of the final turn. It was such a surprise the flagman didn't even wave the checkers for Rindt, who could only explain the victory to Prince Rainier with a shrug and a smile. That facial expression likely grew as the reworked Lotus 72 started to come good, winning 4 races in succession that summer and giving Rindt a big lead in the points. The highs of 1970 were just that, but the low points of the year were also taking its toll on Rindt, notably the deaths of Bruce McLaren and Pierce Courage. Especially given that Rindt drove past the fire and the charred remains of the accident that claimed the life of his good friend Pierre's as he drove to victory in the Dutch GP. Jochen was starting to think about his future with his wife Nina and their toddler Natasha, just as the title was within reach. Rindt and Lotus could have played it safe to take the crown at the Italian Grand Prix. Yes, the Ferraris were quick on home soil, but the points gap was significant. It was decided, some say by Colin Chapman, to remove the wings to try and close the gap on Monza's straights during the practice/qualifying session. Whoever gave the order, Jochen went along with it, while teammate John Miles flat out refused this change to his Lotus. On a flyer, Rindt was in the tire tracks of Von Trips and on the same straight that claimed his hero when suddenly the wingless Lotus veered off track. If the suspected brake shaft had not failed and pitched Rindt into the barrier, and if said barriers had actually been installed correctly, and if Jochen had decided to include the crotch straps, which he did not like wearing, when buckling his harness, things could have been different. Rindt was killed on September 5, 1970, but very much in charge of the World Championship. Brabham, his closest pursuer, sat 20 points back, but Jackie Ickx, in a tie for fourth, was coming on in the improved Ferrari. After a retirement and a win in Canada, Ickx had a chance to steal the championship away. Not that he really wanted it, given the circumstances. Ironically, at Watkins Glen, it was rookie Emerson Fittipaldi, promoted to Rindt's spot at Lotus, that unexpectedly made him a posthumous F1 champ and sealed the constructors' title for the team. Following Rindt's death, there had been some discussions over if his points would be counted. With it being a particularly dangerous time in F1, it wouldn't look good for the champion to be dead. But thankfully, the title that Jochen had earned was forever reflected in the record books. Nina Rindt accepted her late husband's championship, and in the racing world, Jochen became immortal.